Cover cropping is growing species out of season for a purpose. The benefits to cover cropping through this project are increasing awareness and refining the system. We've got to make cover cropping pay its way as we learn more about it. The holy grail is improving soil health and biodiversity on our farms, but we can't go broke in the meantime. We've got to make it pay its way as we learn these things. What is cover cropping? Cover cropping's been around for a number of years, and we've known it in different names in times gone by. A lot of people see it as summer cropping on steroids, but it's a bit more refined and sophisticated now. And it's basically, a lot of the new information's come out of America, and it's about growing different species out of their traditional season, I guess is one way of looking at it.
Yeah, so how long has cover cropping actually been happening in southwest Victoria, Simon?
It's been, I've been working on cover cropping for probably 10 years now, and it started with utilising the winter habit canolas and wheats that we had, and sowing them in spring and then growing them all the way through the summer, and grazing them and then taking them through to harvest. And that people started to twig we can actually grow things over summer, and then the information that started filtering through from the States about growing multi-species cover crops, the opportunity, people sort of saw the opportunity, and so they branched out from monoculture, winter habit canolas, to putting some grasses in it, some legumes in it, and seeing how they went. Probably the biggest issue is timeliness of sowing. You can't waste that moisture event. It's no good coming in 10 days later to sow your cover crop. You need really, to get the best result, to sow the day before the rainfall event's coming. The day after is acceptable. A week later is a waste of time. From the work we've done, we've seen that unless you can sow prior to the promise of rain, the risk of failure really starts to mount up. The day of rain or the day after rain is okay, not as good as getting it in the ground before it rains. A week later, even if you've had a 50 mil rain event, the risk of failure mounts every day. So that moisture is critical, and then patience. Thoughts on that?
I think it varies quite a lot, and I think there's a lot of people that do it or starting to look at doing it because it makes them feel good.
Yep.
Because they've heard about it, they've read about it, they've seen some of the stuff that's happened in the States, and they're got that soil health focus and talking about biodiversity and soil biology, and so my experience is a lot of people are kind of getting involved from that aspect, and then we've got other people getting involved because they're seeing the opportunity to grow something over summer, to produce that feed that can help more from an economic and a whole of systems approach to the farm business. So this project's being funded by the Australian Government's National Landcare program in partnership with the Corangamite CMA and Southern Farming Systems, with the aim of building soil carbon. So these trials are being done as a starting point to look at some different multi-species cover crops, see how they behave in southwest Victoria, and to assess some of the benefits.
There's two streams of the cover cropping project. As a summer cover crop, and also one of the things I wanted to focus on is what we can do in the winter. Traditionally we think about cover cropping, I think you agree, Karen, it's a summer thing, but there's some real opportunities in southwest Victoria, in Corangamite, to do cover crops over winter, and they'll not only give us the opportunity to get away from traditional cropping systems, which has the advantage of reducing weed competition, building soil nitrogen. The problem with growing legumes in a lot of our cover crops is they don't tolerate heat over the summer very well, and so it opens faba beans, peas, are two legumes that automatically we're playing to their strengths, growing them during the winter. So that opens that door up. The same with the veg. So it just gives us an opportunity to have nature working with us rather than working against nature. The work we're doing to explore the winter cover crops is trying to get a legume into the mix. And we've been particularly looking at vetches and hoping that A, it'll be a high quality resource that we can use later on, and B, it also will put some nitrogen into the system. Mix that with a grass and an oats, barley, or an Italian ryegrass. Then you've got some volume and you've got that diversity that's needed. The benefits we'll see are soil health benefits, growing stuff out of season, and having something growing in the soil is widely recognised as a benefit, having something growing year round. So we'll see that. The second thing, and probably at this early stage, one of the most important things, is it gives us an opportunity to feed livestock and improve the bottom line of our livestock operations. Having high quality feed out of season to improve lambs, steers, increase wool production is really beneficial to our farming community. The advantages of winter cover cropping are that it helps us build soil nitrogen, and also gives us a break in the weed cycle. The silver bullet of a chemical drum, we don't want to rely on that, and this may be an opportunity to get away from that silver bullet. The other thing about it is, traditionally our livestock markets are at their peak during winter, so if we've got high quality feed to fatten lambs and steers in winter, we can target those markets and get a really strong financial return.
Yeah. It's great to see the difference, isn't it? Like, compared to having paddocks that are burnt, all the stubble's burnt, and then the paddock's just sitting there bare, and we get like a summer storm or multiple summer storms. To have cover crops there is a real benefit, isn't it? It is.
It's fabulous. A bit of a case study. A farmer I've been working with sowed cover crop, 4 species, had tillage radish, fodder rape, sorghum and soybeans in their cover crop, which was sown in February this year on the back of a good summer rain. That went through till May this year and was turned into silage. And instead of having 2 knockdown herbicide applications to control summer weeds, there was no herbicide application and the production of silage. So there's 10 bales a hectare of silage, valuable silage, as a result of a really cheap and affordable exercise. And not only for the soil health benefits, but also for the filling that feed gap in early autumn, which is traditionally a really tough time for most mixed farmers in southwest Victoria, which are the majority of our farmers are mixed farmers. The other benefit is we've sucked that sponge dry, and so going into winter, where waterlogging's often an issue, these paddocks are now dry in good health for the winter crop. So it's a win-win-win. Really exciting stuff. We had to have the rain to start with, and that was the key to the success of the exercise. Was good rainfall and follow-up rain, but it worked well. Rather than spray it and burn it and just have it sitting there doing nothing, it worked beautifully. Yeah. The species we're going with for the summer cover crops are basically a grass and a brassica. That's the basic for people who are just starting off in cover cropping. we know that Sudan grasses, sorghums, millets will grow in this climate, given enough rainfall. And we also know that the brassicas, tillage radish, fodder rapes, they also grow well. Put the two together and you've got a diverse mix of species. You can also throw in a legume, and we trialled some soybeans this year with great success. They seem to thrive in over this summer. Saying that, we had a really wet summer that suited summer cover crops. So a grass and a brassica is good. A legume into the mix is even better, but we've struggled in finding other species to go into the summer cover crops because we run out of the heat stress and we run out of moisture. But those three things seem to survive pretty well. In the early phases, I'm suggesting keep it simple. Grow what you know grows well. I've seen a lot of shotgun approaches which have got 10, 12 species, and it's forging crossing a new frontier, and we don't know if those species will grow over summer particularly. So stick with what you know, and the purpose. There needs to be a purpose for the species that you're growing, other than just having it grow. While we're looking for a mix, the work out of America and overseas is diversity in that mix is a good thing. Not only do they have different growing characteristics, but they also harbour different insects, which can be a good and a bad thing. Diversity in ecosystems is brilliant. We know that monocultures are not good for the environment and ecosystems, so a diverse ecosystem is really good. So if we can put a number of species into the mix, that's a real benefit, and it's about survival. That's the main driver of a summer cover crop, is will it survive our harsh conditions. You've got wind erosion and soil erosion benefits there as well. That's part of this project is looking at ground cover and trying to keep the ground cover up over summer. If you can get something green growing, not only have you got soil health benefits and production benefits, but you've got something to hold the soil together and stop that wind erosion. We've done quite a bit of work on grazing stubbles, and after the initial few weeks, when any grain's gone or any green material's gone, there's not a lot of value in our stubbles. So we probably overgraze our stubbles.
Yeah.
And that's the detriment of animal production and also erosion. So to have a cover crop in there, take that opportunity to get something growing again, we're not losing much in the system, in our production system. I guess the thing that I'm seeing that drives people to put cover crops in is the concept that they're going to improve the soil health. That seems to be the number one driver. Improve the soil health and increase diversity. And a lot of people are looking at increasing diversity in the soil with the bugs. A lot of the bugs in the soil need growing roots to thrive and to cycle nutrients. So that's one of the things that's driving people to do that.
So what are some of the challenges with cover cropping? Because we know that it's not all roses all the time.
No, that's right. And there have been a lot of failures. Having moisture to germinate your cover crop is the absolute number one driver to success, especially if you're sowing after harvest. Establishment is one of the critical things. The number one driver is moisture, and we rely on basically a summer rainfall event, which with climate change we're seeing not every year, but in a year like this we've seen some significant rainfall events in January, February.
Yeah.
And the work we've done in the Grain and Growth program in previous years shows that we don't need to maintain that moisture like we do north of the Divide. That's gold, that moisture north of the Divide. It's slightly different in Corangamite. We don't need to maintain that moisture because we fill the moisture bucket every winter. So let's utilise it.
So what are some of the other challenges that people often sort of talk about when it comes to cover cropping?
There are some other challenges associated with cover cropping, and a lot of it's to do with the impact on the cropping phase of the production system. Things like green bridges are certainly an issue. We saw
pest and disease.
Yeah, we saw huge numbers of cabbage moths and diamondback moths go through on our cover crops this year. If there was a brassica in the mix, what disadvantage that has on next year's canola crop? Yeah, we'll have to be really diligent in keeping track of that. The other thing about the green bridge is the leaf disease on cereals. We're creating a habitat for leaf disease because we've got cereals growing or grasses growing over summer. So that all has to be taken into consideration, definitely. Getting through our heavy trashes is an issue, but more and more with guidance on tractors, we can interrow sow, disc seeders. It's not as big an issue. We're lucky now that machinery options are much better than they used to be, and it's not a big job to go out and sow a paddock now with the equipment we've got, and so that's a real benefit. But you've got to put aside the time at the right time to tackle your sowing event.
So there's a little bit of flexibility that's required to say, okay, there's going to be a good rainfall event coming up next week. We need to have the seeds, we need to be ready to go.
Planning.
Prior.
There's a social impact on that, is that January, February is traditionally our time to have a holiday, and that's important. We don't want to add another job to the farming list. We're already busy enough as farmers, so you've got to factor that in. There's got to be an economic return to sustain the cover cropping over time. That's the one thing. A number of people go into it thinking there's going to be a huge environmental benefit, soil health benefit, but my experience is it takes time. So we've got to get a return somewhere to make sure we can sustain the cover cropping exercise. You can't put your business at risk on a completely unproven exercise in our environment.
The soil health stuff is something that we're really interested in, and that it's how we actually measure that, and if it does take time, and if it does cost a bit of money to put in different mixes, and you might not get the rainfall event. So you kind of got to weigh up, if we're doing this for a soil health purpose, but it might take 10 years until we really see a significant change, how do we sustain that and pay for that in the long term if we haven't thought about it from a business perspective? If
we can get those soil health and environmental benefits, but also improve the bottom line of our farming business, then it's fantastic. It's going to be a really good result. The take-home messages: be prepared. Timing is everything. Absolutely critical, especially late in this after harvest in that summer period. You can start cover cropping in late spring, in October, November, but it's a longer term cover crop. But if you're taking the opportunity of a rainfall event, you need to be on your game. The other take-home messages are for summer cover cropping, it won't be successful every year. We've seen this year was an exceptionally good year. The two previous years, if your timing was off, pretty much a failure. the benefit to the livestock system in your farming business is tremendous. Is the other thing that I've seen over the last 10 years. People have targeted out of season markets, premium markets, and being able to achieve the target weights for their lambs and steers and heifers. So that's a real benefit, being able to do that through in the autumn, which is traditionally a time where we're supplementary feeding for maintenance, let alone production. So that's a real benefit. There's no right answer as to which species you choose. There are cover crops designed to help the biodiversity in the insect world. There's bee cover crops to give bees a feed source over a lean period, which is important later in the year when we're trying to pollinate crops. There's more, as with all farming, there's more than one answer. You've just got to weigh up the consequences.